Hi, everybody. Carl Archer here, helping you work on your wellness. And thanks for tuning in tonight or for joining us on the replay. I have a really special guest with me tonight named Karen. And today we're going to be talking about creating your future with future focused thinking. Hi, Karen. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having
very I'm good, thank you very much. And Karen's a certified life coach and a survivor of domestic abuse coach as well. And she's here tonight just to introduce herself to us, tell us a little bit about who she is and her background and some of what she offers in way of coaching, mini sessions, programs. You have some wonderful podcasts available for people, lots of great information. So thanks again for joining me tonight. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Karen.
Well, my name is Karen, and I am a survivor. Oh, I'm going to put some of this light down. There we go. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I was in an abusive relationship back when I was 21, and I made my way out, and I was able to, move on with my life, but I never had coaching or any kind of counseling or anything. I just didn't know that I would need such a thing. So as a result of not having any support system in that area after I got out of the abusive relationship, you don't heal those wounds. And so then your choices going forward are very clearly identified by you not having the healing that you need, such as choosing partners that are bad still for you, or not having any self-worth or self-esteem and all of that. So I wanted to help people. So I went to one of the local shelters and I just said, hey, I have some experience here. I would love to help if I could. And that got me into the world of, working with domestic violence survivors. But I'm a paralegal as well. So I was working in the court system with an attorney, and she was working with somebody who was a survivor. And I just really connected with that woman. And then that just kind of rolled one thing into the next, where people were like, hey, maybe Karen can help me too in the court system. But being an advocate is a free service, which I had no problem doing. That for 20 years, I did that. 20 years helping women in the court system. So to make their way through the nightmare that it is when you're in court, especially if you've never been in court before. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I know it's just so scary. They would come out and be like, what just happened? And so I'd be like, okay, this is what happened, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what your attorney needs, and this is what the judge is going to want to see. So I really helped them navigate through that. And then I let some time go by and wasn't coaching or anything. But then I just decided I really want to start a coaching business, because survivors, when they come out on the other side, if they don't have coaching, then they're going to likely end up with either another bad relationship or low self-worth, or they're just not able to get the job that they want because they just don't feel worthy enough for whatever reason. So there is a root cause, an original incident that lies beneath, and that needs to be brought up and healed so that people can move on. So that's my story. And
Yeah, you have a great background, and I really enjoyed when we had our chat the other day, getting to learn more about where you've come from, and how you've advocated for people. And you're so right. Within the court system, especially if you've never done that before, you've already been through a traumatic event. It can be intimidating, and how nice for them to have somebody like yourself to help guide them through that.
Yeah, it was. I knew what it felt like, and I didn't have that. I would have loved to have one of me around when I was going through it, but they're scared to death, and they're like, I have to go to court tomorrow, can you come with me? And I was working a full-time job, but I was just lucky that my boss was nice enough, and the courthouse was close enough to my building where he'd say, well, if you're not busy, go ahead and go. So I would run down there and just sit with them, and they'd be terrified. And a lot of times what happens is women just look terrible after the drama of everything that has been happening to them. And so they need somebody, sort of holding their hand through it.
Well, would you say for a lot of them too, through the process, they're just in survival mode, and it's all about that. And probably like many traumatic events in people's lives, when you get to the other side, it's kind of like that may be when you fall apart, because you're no longer having to hold it together for survival.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because people are, so when you're activated, there's no critical thinking going on. So you're just trying to survive, like you said. So it's day to day, minute to minute. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? How am I going to make it to the next minute? If you have kids, which most of them did, they're trying to manage their children and manage their own life and stay, sane. And so when they come out of it, it's like everything is moving 110 miles an hour when you're going through the situation. And then when you finally get out, it's like a release, right? And you're sitting there thinking, now you can think, and everything starts to become more clear and more in perspective. But then you're realizing, I have nothing. You gave up everything when you were with the abusive partner. Sometimes they'll do these things out of love, like, oh, I don't want you to work. You don't have to work. So now you've lost your job and your skills. I'll take care of all the money. Don't worry about it. Now you've lost your control of even knowing how much money you even have. So little by little, you end up with nothing. And so then you're stuck. You're alone. And now you have no car. You have no finances. You have no skills anymore to get a job. And so you're not in survival. You're not in survival mode, but now you're in stress mode. Yeah. And then that just starts another whole thing, So getting our emotions in line is super important when you're coming out on the other end and that's kind of my ideal client is somebody who's saying, I got out and I am working and managing my life, but I just feel like there's something I'm not fulfilled in some way. I can't seem to move forward with my life. And that's because they're stuck in the spin cycle of negative energy.
And like we sort of had talked about before as well, what led them to that first choice that may have got them in that first situation can go back even further. So, you're exactly right. It's so important to know that people have an option to take a look at what has happened, to work with somebody who has experience, such as yourself, to try to not repeat that pattern again so that you can move forward.
Yeah, that's super important. And a lot of people don't realize that there was a original incident or a root cause of the problem. And so yes, you were in a bad relationship. And so people think that's the thing, but let's go back farther. What led you to want to be with a person who was treating you this way? And so for me, like, I didn't have the classic, I had a bad childhood and I was in an unhealthy situation. And then I ended up with an abusive person. That wasn't it at all. I have a wonderful family and beautiful parents and everything was wonderful, but I had low self-esteem for some reason. And that's another long story. So if you want to hear that story, just get on my webpage and my podcast. I talk about it all the time. But I felt like I was the ugly duckling. And for whatever reason, people get affected by what children, for the most part, children say to them, right? So just say you were bullied or just one of many things. These are things that stick with you and you can't seem to move past them. So, fast forward 10 years, you think you're overweight, you think you're an ugly duckling or a weirdo, whatever dumb thing a kid said to you, or that you're not smart or whatever. And then you're trying to navigate a relationship or a job or something like that. And you just can't do it because you don't want to raise your hand for that promotion or the guy that you think would be a perfect fit for you because you don't feel good enough about yourself. So then you settle for whoever might like you. And most times you're settling for somebody that's not a right fit for you. And it's like just amazing to me how many people end up with these abusive partners. And sometimes it's not just abusive, it's unhealthy partners that are not nurturing you and making you feel safe and secure in your life. So then it just snowballs out of control and we end up, escaping to get out.
Exactly. And escaping, and like you said, oftentimes too, is repeating. So, and what you talked about as a child, so much of our imprinting or our memories or our beliefs are developed before we're 6 years old. And what we remember as necessary truths may not be the exact memory of what actually happened. So our brain naturally protects ourselves from, fear or pain by planting those memories in our brain as well. So then you're exactly right. We grow up this way and we're thinking, why do we believe this? But, you just go along your every day and you don't really stop and focus in. And that's what's so important about having a coach, is that it's just as equally as important to invest in yourself and look at yourself as anything else you do.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think that they need to do that. They'll spend money on a lot of things, but their emotional health and their, like your physical health, that's one thing. You fall, you break your arm. Well, I got to go to the doctor. I have no choice, right? And you have a choice with your emotional and mental health, but it's so what happens is your prefrontal cortex is where all of your critical thinking is happening, but your primitive brain is what's storing all of your fears and the things that are protecting you and your patterns. And I always say to people, our brains are equipped to remember. That's its job. So if you had something in the past that happened to you or you lived your life a certain way, your brain remembers that it's doing its job. But then in order to break that cycle, you need to turn that pattern around. And it takes courage to move out of that primitive brain, that protective brain. And I always say, people will seek out and find evidence to support their negative beliefs. And I see it all the time. So if somebody's trying to prove that they're damaged so there's those people who want to do that. They want to prove that they're damaged and they want to talk about it all the time and tell everybody they know, and then rally people around them that they know will feed into that negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it feels good to them because they're getting attention of some sort. It's just the wrong kind. And it's not moving them into the futures that they want. So I always say you can do the same thing, but seek out and find evidence to support your positive beliefs. So it would take a coach to get you to say, all right, we know this happened and it was awful and terrible. And now if you're really serious about moving forward into a future that you want, it's time to start thinking some new thoughts and having new thought patterns and having a goal. So when you posted that I'm future focused coach, I like to find out what it is that you want. What is your goal? It's not that I don't want to know what happened to you. Let's find out and then let's move past it so that we can move forward into the life that you want. So having a goal is so important for people because it feels good to be checking things off the list and reaching the goal instead of perpetuating the past by talking about it all the time.
Yes, and those are very, very great points that you made, and I think it's nice and that you do this type of work. It's wonderful, and I really appreciate you coming on to talk to us tonight because people need to know that this is normal. This does not mean there's something wrong with you. This does not mean that you're the problem. I think probably all of us have something that defines us or that is resolved that prevents us from being the best version of ourselves. So knowing that a lot of people are experiencing the same thing and that there is help out there is so key for work on their wellness.
Yeah, and I sometimes fear that when people see that I'm a survivors of domestic abuse coach or survivors in general, people don't think that they're a survivor of anything. But trust me, it's your emotional traumas that if you made it past them that allow you to be a survivor. But everybody has had some sort of an emotional trauma, and it's not the big traumas people think, like a plane crash or some horrible traumatic experience. Emotional traumas can be so simple as you being afraid of a snake. Some people, I would go hysterically running away from that. And other people might be like, oh, it's just a snake, pick it up, no big deal, right? So everybody's emotional trauma is personal to them. I don't like to disqualify anybody's emotional well-being. And so we need to look at what is it that's preventing you from moving forward with your life or having the things that you want, or even some people's thing is just to be happy. Like they're not looking for anything big and huge. And so what I say is the things that help people heal emotional trauma are feeling safe, being around safe and nurturing people. And that goes for your work environment, who you're living with, who are you hanging around with? Are these people that are lifting you up and nurturing you, or are they tearing you down every chance they get? And having purpose in your life. So having purpose in your life really is a huge healer of emotional trauma. I mean, something that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
That is so powerful, I feel like.
It really is. And when you mention that, I kind of even think about myself. And, I work with a home-based business, and it was never something that I had pre-planned to do. And I had no idea really the degree of uh, personal development and how much I'd really truly have to take a look at myself in order to make my business work. So it's been very interesting, and it's been very rewarding to take the time and to be involved with something that has really forced me, if you will, to take a look and go, okay, well, what areas do I struggle with, and figuring out the reasons why. And as you do that and you overcome them, as fearful as they are at the beginning, it's so empowering. And I don't mean like powerful, like you take over other people, but it empowers yourself. I feel better. I feel more confident. And it's quite remarkable when you actually start doing that for yourself. So self-care and self-love is important.
Yeah. And doesn't it feel so good when you're like, just helping people in general? I mean, when I started off, I was like, I had no goals in mind. It was just like, oh, you need my help? Yeah, I'll help you. It was no big deal. And then it just snowballed, and people were like calling me like, gosh, if I was getting paid for those 20 years of advocacy work, but I was so happy to do it, because I knew how they felt. And it was just so rewarding to me. So on my webpage, if you go to my testimonials, you'll see all the women that I've helped. They've sent me letters, and I just put that as much of what they said as I could on there, because it does make you feel good to know that you're impacting someone's life. And some of the women that I helped, when they came to me, they were just broken and did not think there was any reason to go on. They just didn't, they just couldn't see past where they were at. And that's where I come in. And so, but a couple of them, I felt that we're still friends on Facebook and whatnot. And one of them now has a child and is so happy. And then another one who was literally living in a room of someone's house after losing her big mansion house that she had. She has a beautiful home now, and she's got an amazing job. And oh my gosh, it just makes my heart so happy when I see people that have moved past. And then, I stay connected with them even now. Just, hey, how's everything going? Every now and then people will call me and like, hey, I need to pick your brain about something. Happy to do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so nice that option is available for people, and to know that it's there, it's safe, and it's okay. And it's okay to reach out to somebody and ask for some help, because that's what we're all here to do, is to, support each other and care with each other and help in those areas where we can. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your coaching program, because you did talk that you work with survivors of domestic abuse, but you touched on that, any kind of, emotional trauma that you may have had. So it's not limited to just that. Do you work with men as well at all, or is it just generally women?
I generally work with women. I was working with men, but it seems like more women gravitate toward me. But I would certainly help a man if he came to me and said, this is what I'm dealing with, because my coaching program is, it's not just geared for women. It just seems like there are more women that that resonate with me. But healing emotional trauma is going to work the same either way. And it depends on what it is that a person is suffering with. So I am not opposed to helping men, although in some instances, if a man had been abused and he was coming from that perspective, there are more male-oriented coaches that can deal better with the male side of it. I mean, and maybe they would relate better to a guy. I don't know. But I had a couple of male clients, and they liked me, and they had successes. But I'm trying to focus more on women, because women survivors tend to have the same types of problems, and I see the same types of issues with them, because women typically will feel like they have low self-esteem right away. They feel like they have to be the one to fix everything. Women are typically the nurturers and the caregivers. And so the reason that they put 110% into the relationship, and then because the last, I have a Talk It Out Tuesday on my Facebook group, and we talked about grief after leaving an abusive relationship. And I know people are like, why would you ever grieve over leaving an abusive relationship? I would think you'd be celebrating. But what people don't understand is you've put in maybe 10 years of your life. You tried to make it work. You did everything. Typically you do more than the partner because they're typically abusive. So you're putting so much into it, and then it ends, or you escape, or whatever it may be. And there is that period of relief, but then you realize I no longer can have children, let's just say, or I made it past and through my childbearing years, and now I'm left here with nobody, and I'm broken, and so you grieve that, or you're grieving the amount, maybe you helped this person through college or something, right? So you spent thousands of dollars on someone who didn't really care about you, and then it ends. So there's so many things to grieve over, but it's mostly the loss of time that you spent and that you put into the relationship. So that was a good Talk It Out Tuesday, because there was a lot of people that were like, yeah, I've been grieving over this and I can't seem to get past it. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, call me. I can so help you.
Yeah. Well, and you're mentioning that, I've been once divorced, and whether it was abusive or whatever the case may be, wasn't, still that it's almost like that guilt or regret, and you have to work through that. And I often describe that process of even going through a divorce as a grieving process.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that comes up. And yes, you're right. As women, we have a tendency to give it our all. And I always said that, we could see the potential in what that other person could be. And so that's what we live with. Like, that's what we strive for all the time. And yeah.
I always say that sometimes you're grieving the loss of what you thought the relationship was going to be. So as women, that's the other thing. Like, you start off before all this, and you have these dreams of your wonderful life, and you're going to have a beautiful house, and you're going to have children, and it's like a fairy tale. That's, most women are like that, and you want that so much. And so then when you get into the relationship and it's not like that, and you find yourself like, that was weird. Like, why would he say that to me? And it's such a slow process of these little. So I was living with somebody speaking to me in a condescending, belittling, and demeaning way, like every day. So over time, you start to take that on as that, well, I guess I am that person. I guess I am a horrible person, or whatever it is that they say to you. And so you need help unraveling that when you're done with that relationship. And so there's just so many things that I say it is a grieving process. You have to grieve like you would the death of a person. And if you don't let yourself do that, a lot of times women are already so activated, and they're like, okay, I'm out now. Now I got to do this. Now I got to do that. And they're not giving themselves a chance to just be like, okay, that's over. Let me process that, and let me figure out who I am now, so that I can move forward. But they just want to fix everything, and women are fixers.
Or get into the next relationship right away, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, exactly, take time to get to know yourself. And there are a lot of emotions that go along with it that need time to heal and to resolve. So
yes.
And I can attest to, at the time I had a therapist that I went to talk to, and it was the best thing I could have done. And there's often so much stigma around that, a marriage that breaks down for whatever reason could be considered a failure, or what are people going to think, or, all the different things. So we're sometimes overwhelmed by outside influences as well. So it is a lot to process.
Yeah. And, it's hard to not listen to people. But what I always say is, your friends and family are not equipped to deal with what you went through. They have no idea what you went through, really. They only know what you've told them or what they think they saw, but they're not equipped. They want to fix everything. They want to make you feel better. Or you could have the situation like I did, where my family just wanted to brush it all under the rug. Okay, you're out, so let's move on with our life. And so we're not going to talk about it. Like, that's it. We're done. And so friends and family are not really the right people to be talking to. And sometimes when we were talking about grief, and I said, your family might have a different experience for you, because they suffered while you were suffering, and they hated this person for what this person was doing to you, and they went through their own drama about it. Now you're saying that you miss them, But I'm like, you don't miss them. You miss what you wanted the relationship to be.
Yeah.
You miss
The
the
idea.
idea of what the relationship was. And now you've got your family all mad at you. So now you're really alone, right? And so that's not what you need. You need a therapist or a counselor or a coach. And of course, me being a coach, I always say in my coaching practice, I will, we will talk once a week. And then in between our sessions, I want to be hearing from you, or I will be reaching out to you. And I can't speak for all therapists, but typically you see them and then you schedule an appointment for the following week. And the one I was saying, you couldn't call them. I mean, calling them was not an option, or
No.
text them or anything. And you need that. Like for me, I like to hold your hand through the process. I want to make sure that because I don't want to talk to you next week and have to unravel all the damage that you did from one, call to the next. I want to make sure. And when my client is like, oh, I don't know, I'm feeling a little stressed, or I have this coming up, or I might have to go meet this, my ex for whatever reason, like, you better be calling me so we can talk through it before you go, because you need that. So coaching for me is, I'm coaching you. I'm like your cheerleader. I'm like I'm holding your hand through the process, and I'm going to be there for you. And I don't want my clients to feel like, well, I don't know, I have to go to court tomorrow, and, or I have to, I have to do a speech for this new job, and I feel so horrible because I have such low self-esteem, and I'm working with my coach, but I have to do this tomorrow. I'm not sure how to do it. Oh my gosh, like, you need to call me and you need to say, I got to talk this through with you. So I think maybe that's the difference a little bit between my kind of coaching anyway. I don't know what other coaches do, but I want to hear from them so that I know that they're supported and they feel, because you don't have that when you're in the bad relationship. And then when you get out, you just like, I don't have that. I still don't have that. Like, my family's not talking to me now. And all my friends have left me because all I did was talk about it. And I perpetuated this negative. And pretty soon your friends are like, oh, here comes Karen. She's just going to be talking about this.
Yeah, what was going on?
Yeah.
And you have such a wonderful way about you, Karen, I must say, because I love how you can like straight shoot the point that you need to say somebody, but you do it in such a lovely way that it's not offensive and it's not, belittling in any way, shape, or form. You give such a great vibe that you really are there for them and you care about them. And yeah, you're just absolutely wonderful. Now, you offer some mini sessions where people could connect with you and see if you guys are a great fit.
Yep. So what I have is on my webpage, which is KarenMessina.com. You can just click on there and a little box will pop up where you can put your email, but there's a little section that says free mini session, and you can just get a free mini session with me just to see if we are a right fit. And sometimes people will say to me, oh my gosh, after I talked to you that first time, I felt so much better. And my goal is to make you walk away from that mini session feeling better and like really seeing that there is hope. I mean, even if somebody talked to me, I've had a few people, they've talked to me on the mini session and they walked away and they felt great. Maybe they couldn't afford it, but I felt good because they walked away feeling better and were able to be like, well, maybe down the road I'll connect back with Karen, but she made me realize something, or I hadn't thought of that before, or something like that. So I love helping people. Yeah. So there's that. And then you can work with me for 3 months or 6 months. That's what I got. And you know what? Some people are like, oh, 3 months. I don't know if that's enough time. Some people are like, oh, I'm just going to do this for a couple weeks. But honestly, you really, and that's fine, but you will see that the more you get rolling, you're just like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing that I can do? It's like addictive because you really want to feel better. You start to feel better and you want to feel even more alive and, ready to take on the world. So people are like, oh, can we go longer? You can go as long as you want.
Well, and I can attest to that too. I said after, it was like the greatest thing. And it's no different than going to the gym and how good you feel after a workout. Our mind and who we are and our emotional well-being is equally as important to work out, to strengthen, to, give attention to. So, I encourage people to do it because it's something wonderful you can do. And we all want to feel good. Don't we? Like, ultimately, we just want to be happy and be loved and feel great.
Right. And I mean, that's exactly the point about a coaching practice. You have to practice. But I always say to people, it's like, So you don't go to the, you don't say, well, I did my trauma work and it didn't work. You told me to do this and it didn't work. It's like, so like you took a shower today and so you're done. Like you did it, you tried it, and now you're done with it. Like, no, you have to do that every day if you want to not be smelly. Or if you want to go to the gym and you want to work out and you're like, well, I went to the gym and I did some things and I don't look any different. And so I'm like, well, it's the same thing with your coaching practice. You have to practice the things that we discuss and then keep doing it even long after you're done with me, so that because this cycle is what you need to change. And it's just like at the gym. You stop going to the gym, eventually you're going to get all flabby again, right? So working on it, and it takes a lot of work to shift your mindset a little bit so that you're making a new thought choice. And it's got to be on purpose. So you're on purpose making a different choice about the same old experience. So I always like to put that out there. It's the same old experience, but you're putting a different thought choice on it and you're making it the experience that you want it to be. You have the power and control over your life. Sometimes I have people say their mantra when they're all stressed out. They're like, oh my gosh, I got so stressed out. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, this is what you do. You take 2 deep belly breaths and then you recite this. This is my present. My past has no power over me. Then you take 3 more deep breaths and that centers you. Saying that this is my present, my past does not control me is so powerful for most survivors, because their past just keeps creeping up and taking over and causing triggers and all kinds of things. So little tips like that are helpful.
Oh, absolutely, invaluable. And again, just speaking for myself from personal development, some of what I notice now is I'll notice the shift. So say if I miss a couple days or my thought goes in another direction, I can recognize that way quicker and go, oh, okay, we don't think like that anymore usually. So what's going on and how do we bring ourselves back quicker? Whereas before, maybe we were roaming around with that thought, thinking nothing of it or nothing to do about it or what direction to take it in. So it is incredibly powerful for us. And I love mantras. I think it's a great way to connect with the moment too, rather than letting yourself become overcome, like you said.
Yeah. And having, some people are like, well, I have all these great coping skills. And I'm like, well, that's great. And if your coping skills are high level, like yoga or, aerobics or meditation, that's great. But then you go home to your toxic life or you're with the toxic people or whatever. Coping skills are just a short-term release to a long-term problem. So you need to, when I say safe relationships and safe, feeling safe, you need to place yourself in that space, because you can go to yoga all you want, but you're just going to be really good at yoga, but you're still going to have a really crappy life, right? So you have to knowing that. Then there's the people who have the low level coping skills where they're drinking and overeating and just doing a lot of negative things. Now you have a new problem. Now you are an alcoholic or you're overweight or whatever it is that you did. So then you're just compounding the problem. So I always like to, say to people, try to have, along with your coping skills, get yourself in a safe environment so that they're working together.
Well, and that's the thing too about, working on your wellness. Working on your wellness is not just one thing, it's a multitude of things. So you're exactly right. Yoga is a fantastic practice, or meditation, but you also need to really address the root cause of what's going on. And then use that as part of your practice as well. Or if, you overeat, well, you got to just diet, you need to look at the emotional root cause as to maybe why you're eating so much, or you turn to food when you're stressed. And so there's a lot of pieces to the wellness puzzle. And that's what we're here today, is just to share with people a little bit more, to bring to awareness to the fact that that is the case and what some options are. Now, you have some podcasts. I was listening to some of them. They're absolutely wonderful. And that's a great way to get to know Karen as well, and a little bit about who she is and what she offers. I thoroughly enjoyed those. And those we found on your website, through your website, is it?
Yeah, you can find them on my website. I have on Instagram, I have Linktree. And so if you click my Linktree, I think I even put my Linktree somewhere on Facebook. I'm like going crazy trying to connect everything. I want to have everything in one spot. So I have the podcast. I have my Facebook group, which is Own Your Power, a women's tribe of survivors. You can find that on my Facebook. And that's where it's, you have to, it's just a group and you have to be approved to go in it. And it's women feeling safe enough to talk about their issues. And I like women to talk to each other. So I love the group. I used to have support group at my house, another thing that I did for people. And I was always amazed at how they helped each other. So I love the Own Your Power group. And then I have my Facebook page, my web page. I've been trying to do videos every Tuesday in the Own Your Power group called Talk It Out Tuesday. And I ask people for topics. If they don't give me a topic, I just ramble on, how I can just talk and talk. So I just pick a topic and talk about it. And in the beginning, I was like just talking to no one. And like even my podcast, the first 3 I think were terrible. I think the more I do them. Oh, and on my podcast, I had one of my clients, and she's a survivor, and she was on the last podcast, Sarah Smith, and she was a wealth of information. So if anybody wants to listen to that podcast, that's a really good one.
Excellent. Yeah, maybe I'll get the link from you too, and I can post it in the comments section for this video, and then people could find it through there. And I do have your website and your Facebook page on here for people as well, to reach out to you and to join your group if they want to join, because you're absolutely right. Support is so key and so important, and it's just, I don't know, it's like anything. It's amazing when you reach out to other people who are dealing with the same sorts of things. The answers come, you make connections you never would have otherwise have made. So
right, you're not an island. I always say that you're not an island. You cannot do it alone. You need support, and the right kind of support from people.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Karen. I think you have a wonderful service that you offer. You are kind and caring, and I'm so happy that you joined me tonight to be able to share with you. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun connecting with you too. Karen lives in New York, and I'm in Saskatchewan, Canada, and we connected over a like-minded thinker as well. And she was open to have a conversation with me a little bit, and here we are today. So it's been very enjoyable.
Yes, about my box socks. That's how we connected, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'm wearing right now, and I love them.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's so great. I'm looking forward to hearing more stories from you about your experience, you and your husband, and talk a little bit more about the technology. And, we're both in the business of helping others with an alternative way. And with another piece of that puzzle, like we talked about earlier today.
Yeah.
Thanks again for joining me. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. It's Carla Archer helping you work on your wellness. Stay tuned. You can like my Facebook page and follow me here and see what's coming up next on the schedule. And thanks again, Karen, for being here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you.
Thanks. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.